When you think of notorious criminals, Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy might come to mind, but in reality, they don't even come close to the deadliest killer in US history. That title belongs to someone who murdered over 90 people, mostly women, more than any other killer in the country. I'm talking about Samuel Little, America's most prolific serial killer. Now before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to never miss an update. Samuel Little, who had a specific fixation on strangling his victims and used to masturbate with comic panels where women were being, was an American serial killer active from 1970 to 2005. He confessed to murdering 93 people, almost all women. The FBI has confirmed his involvement in at least 60 of these cases, making him the serial killer with the most confirmed murders in US history. Samuel Little, born Samuel McDowell on June 7, 1940, in Reynolds, Georgia, had a troubled start. His mother, Bessie Mae Little, was a teenage prostitute who left shortly after birth, and authorities believe she might have incarcerated when she had him. The census from the time lists Bessie Mae as a maid and his father as 19-year-old Paul McDowell. After his birth, Little's family moved to Lorain, Ohio, where his grandmother mainly raised him. He attended Hawthorne Junior High but struggled with discipline and academic performance. Little claimed that he began having sexual fantasies about strangling women as a child, triggered by seeing his kindergarten teacher touch her neck, and he collected true crime magazines featuring stories about women being choked as a teenager. In 1956, Samuel Little was convicted of breaking and entering in Omaha, Nebraska, and was placed in a juvenile offender institution. His mother was listed as whereabouts unknown on the booking card. In the late 1960s, he moved to Florida to live with his mother and worked various jobs, including as a cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant. Little claimed that during this time he traveled extensively and had numerous run-ins with the law. He was arrested in 8 states for offenses such as DUI, fraud, shoplifting, solicitation, armed robbery, aggravated assault and rape. Little also claimed to have taken up boxing in prison, referring to himself as a former prize fighter. In 1961, Samuel Little was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain and was released in 1964. By 1975, he had been arrested 26 times across 11 states for crimes such as theft, assault, attempted rape, fraud, and attacks on government officials. In 1982, Little was arrested in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and faced charges for the murder of 22-year-old Melinda Rose Lepre, who had gone missing that September. A grand jury chose not to indict him, but while under investigation, Little was extradited to Florida and tried for the murder of 26-year-old Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was discovered in September 1982. Witnesses identified Little as having spent time with the Mount before her disappearance, but due to skepticism of their testimonies, he was acquitted in January 1984. Little then moved to California near San Diego, where he was arrested in October 1984 for kidnapping, beating, and strangling 22-year-old Lori Barros, who survived. A month later, police found him in his car with an unconscious woman who had also been beaten and strangled. Little served 2.5 years for these crimes. After his release in February 1987, he relocated to Los Angeles and committed at least 10 more murders. On September 5, 2012, Little was arrested at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky on a narcotics charge. DNA testing later linked him to the murders of Linda Alford, July 13, 1987, Guadalupe Duarte Apocodo, and Audrey Nelson Everett, all found in Los Angeles. Extradited to California, Little faced charges on January 7, 2013. Shortly after, authorities revealed that Little was being investigated for up to 36 additional murders from the 1980s, and the Lepre case was reopened. He was ultimately tested for involvement in 93 murders of women across various states. Samuel Little was tried in September 2014 for the murders of Linda Alford, Audrey Nelson, and Guadalupe Duarte Apocoda. The prosecution presented DNA evidence and witness testimonies from people who had been attacked by Little. On September 25, 2014, Little was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. He maintained his innocence throughout after his conviction. Little continued to confess to more murders. And that wraps up our deep dive into Samuel Little's America's most prolific serial killer. If you found the exploration of this chilling crime fascinating, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What case or criminal profile would you like us to cover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.